Hey guys, I haven't recorded in ages and I want to develop the channel and actually progress it to something, but sometimes I don't have time to read a book every week or to do get so much information, but I realize that I already am reading and listening to so much stuff every week, so I can just talk about that instead of reading a whole book, which takes a lot of effort. And yesterday I listened to this podcast. It's called the Michaela Peterson podcast. It's one of my favorites. If you want to see a different perspective on health or something like that, you should definitely watch that podcast because she has really cool and different guests on it, who have kind of different views to the conventional ones a little bit. So I think it's pretty cool. So I watched this one with Dr. Zubin Damania, who's this doctor, and he's got his own podcast and stuff, and he's quite hip and stuff. And he spoke about COVID. They discussed COVID, and I just wanted to talk about some of the stuff that they mentioned because it's kind of interesting, I thought. So the first thing that he spoke about is this Zoomocracy idea, and he spoke about this when she asked him how bad is COVID, and he was like, well, there is no answer to that question because every single person is going to be affected by COVID differently, both infection-wise and social-wise. And what he means by this is that the privileged and the rich and the middle class are part of this Zoomocracy now, ever since COVID has started, and they're able to benefit from a life that doesn't have to be in real life, and they don't have to go into the office, and they don't have to interact with people they don't like anymore. Now they can kind of organize their own time, and they can stay at home, and it works for them because they have a Wi-Fi, because they have a reliable connection, and they have space around them. Whilst poorer people and stuff are not going to have the same space in their house, the same access to the internet, the same resources, and they're not going to be able to balance it. People who are on the front line or who have jobs that they can't lose and need to go to in person, they need school for their kids to be able to function. And if that's for a routine, that's for food dependency, that's for general education of their child and caretaking of their child, so they're the ones that are going to suffer, and they're not part of this Zoomocracy, which I think is quite a cool idea, and it's true. Then he brought up another point, that there are fates worse than death, and this is a concept that we struggle really badly with in society to grapple with, I think, because we're so scared of dying, even though it's a very natural thing, and I know that it causes a lot of grief and stuff, but there are things that are worse than death, I think, and this guy thinks too, and I think it's just a food for thought. I'd be interested to see what you guys think about that. He also mentioned that in America and Canada, which is where they're from, that they have a really they don't have a very high tolerance to risk, whilst the rest of the world does. They don't feel like they have as much to lose, whilst in those kind of countries there is a really high, low tolerance to risk. It's we don't want to risk it because there's such a large, a backlash can so easily happen. You can get sued so easily in America for anything you do, whilst in much smaller countries it's kind of it's just worth taking the risk and there's less repercussions for it. Then he spoke about the mRNA vaccine, which he described how you can go into how that works and stuff, but I'm not really going to go into that. He just said that the reason that you get sick after you have your second dose and stuff is because you're not being injected with the virus, you're just being injected with the DNA of the protein that is on the virus, which we need to develop an immune response to, and that protein is the thing that causes the symptoms a fever and other flu-like things. Whilst when you have a virus in addition to having the protein, that's where stuff like coughing and phlegm and the virus being replicated occurs. So the vaccine does not do that. That's what the difference between the vaccine and the real life corona. Then they spoke about how the vaccine has been politicized and how when Trump was in power, the right were keen to take the vaccine, and the left were no way are we taking this vaccine. And then as soon as Biden came in power and started doing a massive vaccine haul, the right were we're not going to do it, and the left were anyone that doesn't do it is a bad person, and it's just been completely politicized when it shouldn't be. And the podcaster was very skeptical as to why the vaccine was able to be produced so fast, because she's not very trusting of the healthcare system, and he said that The reason that was able to happen so fast is because decades ago they started doing research into this kind of thing. Plus, the reason that research takes so long, like the development of a vaccine takes so long, because you need to have a large pool of trial participants, which is usually hard to get, because why would people want to just have a random vaccine that they don't know if it's healthy or not? But in this case, we had everyone wanting to be a part of it because people were dying from it, so there were many participants willing to come into this, so their pool of people to test was large. In addition, we had a large amount of the virus, which is another thing. If a virus is very small and very niche, then it's going to be difficult to test it, because when we test it, it's not going to take into consideration how it would be in different parts of the world where there's less or more of the illness or the virus. In addition, governments kind of backed all vaccine companies that they were going to buy kind of no matter what they produced, so all financial problems kind of went out the way, and they just kind of went, let's just do this. And the guy said, even though he's pro-vaccine, like, there's no point of coercing people into the vaccine. The best thing you can do is just educate people, because people have different traumas related to the healthcare system. And he mentioned that before 4 years old, you don't really remember much, like, in general, I guess, and he meant in terms of, like, the healthcare system and how you were treated in that way. But from 4 to 6, people can associate a deep fear, and then when they get older, they're unconsciously terrified and against kind of what the healthcare system advocates for, which is why some people, I guess, couldn't be anti-vaccine, because, for example, he said that he has a memory of, like, literally being tied down and given 3 vaccinations in one go, unwillingly, between these ages, and so he held a little bit of that on, and it's these unconscious things, and also if you were let down by the healthcare system, or whether you have trust in it, these different issues tie into it, so we can't force people, we just have to allow them to do what they want, which I think it's always should go for anything in life. And another point that he brought up, which is not to do with the vaccine, is that we shouldn't get rid of triggers. We have to learn how to deal with them. It's like, he was talking about people in, I don't know, for example, people with eating disorders who might be triggered by seeing a certain food or talking about something or going to a certain, I don't know, restaurant, and that some people go about the way of, like, I have to avoid all my triggers, and he said that's the worst way to success, and I've heard this in so many other health podcasts. Like, we have to get used to the idea of triggers need to be let. We can't ban words in society, we can't do these kind of things. Like, people need to adjust and desensitize themselves to these triggers, because that's the only way that they're going to actually get better. Another random point, he said that artificial sweeteners may create insulin-resistant bacteria in your microbiome, which is why they're also crappy, so don't drink Coke Zero. And that is it. I know it was kind of rambly, but I just wanted to post something because I haven't posted, and then the algorithm will just put me down, and I feel like I've been gaining a bit of momentum. So that's it. Check out the podcast, check out the guy, he's super interesting, and I hope you learned at least one thing today. Bye!